Come on in, brother.
Wow, thank you, Eric. What an entry. That's beautiful. Man, I love you guys. I love this group. I love your enthusiasm for Alcoholics Anonymous. I love that 52 of you are here right now instead of watching football. That means, this is important. This is a matter of life or death, and it is for me. I thank you once again, Eric, for asking me. To be divinely inconvenient is how this
Mm.
game works, and I love it. I'm at a convention in Las Vegas right now, looking out the window, looking out the sphere. There's a happy hour going on at 4:30 to 6, which I don't care about. This is perfect. And I get to do some service work and work on my recovery. And hopefully, someone will hear something that they could relate to and say, wow, me too. And that's what this program's about, because that's what it was like for me. So let me give you some statistics. Once again, I'm Tom M. I'm an alcoholic, and I like that. A lot of us have the same last name, right? Alcoholic. It's my last name in these meetings. And that common solution, I like that. I like that there's a common problem, and I love that there is a solution today. You know, um, I came to believe in a power greater than myself, uh, with the ability of maintaining a conscious contact with that power and having a sponsor where I could be sponsorable and take directions and work with others and give it away. I have had permanent sobriety up to this date from December 23rd, 2010, which means I just picked up 14 years, which is a miracle. I mean, you guys know. It's just amazing how this works. And so I'm so grateful for the people that came before us and laid down the path, that laid this path of recovery so we could become recovered. And I think about what it was like my family members, my great grandfather, they were German. I'm from New Jersey originally. Forget about it. And I live out in Las Vegas today. But my family, when they came to America, Germans, a lot of them drank themselves to death. My other family, my Italian side, my grandfather had a tavern, and they drank a lot. They made wine as a kid, and I remember all that stuff. But none of that's, alcoholism doesn't run in my family. It gallops in my family. And that's not what makes me an alcoholic. What makes me an alcoholic, and it's on page 44, is if when you honestly want to find yourself, you cannot quit entirely. And I like this, or if you have a little control over the amount you take, you're probably an alcoholic. And I love that they tell me I'm probably, that I'm not, I'm not going to tell you that because you can't tell an alcoholic anything, right? No, no, I'm not. It's like, yeah, you're probably, it's up to me to decide. And that's what makes me an alcoholic today, is that I have the inability to stay stopped. When I start, I can't stop. And when I stop, I can't stay stopped. I'm that restless, irritable, and discontented. It gets so tight that the relief I get from drinking is the only thing that just gives me that ease and comfort. And today I found a substitute in Alcoholics Anonymous, and for that, I'm truly grateful. You know, um, Growing up in New Jersey, I remember, as a kid, that conscious separation, that uneasy feeling of not, I hear this all the time. Oh, I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in here. So if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous and you feel like you don't fit in, well, welcome. Where did you fit in? That's what I have to say. It's like, shit, I try to fit in everywhere and I've never felt like I could quietly fit in. But I know today that I fit in here with you guys. I know for a fact that I fit in here. I hear the stories and I can relate and I see the power that works through the rooms and the power that's greater than me that restores people to sanity, that stand at the podiums that have been locked up and that have been living behind dumpsters, that have a life today that's worth like unbelievable, better than some people that I know that haven't had this program. But when I grew up in New Jersey, I remember as a kid, I remember Frank Sinatra on the radio. I did it my way. I did it my way, of course. I love that song, and I grew up with like children should be seen and not heard, and if you want something done, you have to do it yourself, and boys don't cry, pick yourself up, come on. All these things that made an imprint on my life, and that conscious separation was the judgment of like, oh, you look at those neighbors, they have five kids, I only have two, or oh, their parents are different, or this kid is better, or this kid, I don't quite fit in. I'm always I always felt less than or maybe better than sometimes, but I was never could be equal with anybody. And that's that conscious separation. That's the original ism, I like to call it, that I separate myself from you, from God, and from everybody, you know? And so no wonder why I don't fit. And then when I take that alcohol, that's a power greater than me, all of a sudden it's a magic elixir. I fit right in, man. It's unbelievable. So as a kid growing up, I could notice the differences. I have a great mind that notices differences. That's what, it's always, judging and noticing and it kind of made me feel uncomfortable. And we moved to another town, and I remember these kids bullied me, and I felt uncomfortable because I wasn't part of, and I never wanted to be not part of again. And I lived like my whole life to protect myself from that feeling. And one of the ways I was able to do that later in life was through alcohol and other substances about partying and stuff. So so just to get back to growing up back in New Jersey. At 13, I remember my good friend of mine moved away and I was in seventh grade and we were in the woods and I walked up and down. I knew my neighbors were my buddy, my neighbor, or whatever was back in the woods with these other guys. And it was like, oh, my friend left. I don't know what to do. And I went over to them and they handed me something and I took it and they're like, yeah, man, he's cool. And all of a sudden, instantly, I was cool. And what came with all that stuff was drinking, guys with cars, girlfriends, low brows. Let's see, Heineken's, right? All those high-end beers. And said, well, Budweiser, of course, because I'm from New Jersey. Newark was right there. There was none of this craft beer. And so I took that the drink and the other stuff, and I was cool and I fit right in. And I never forget, this is a progressive illness and it's progressive sobriety too. Go figure, right? But when I took the first couple drinks, I remember it took like two or three, I would be buzzed. And then I remember I threw up once, but I wanted more of it because it relieved me. It gave me that. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz, when it's in black and white and everything turns color and everything's bright and you got things are fun and people are dancing around and it was like that's what it did to me. It gave me courage. It gave me a heart. I thought it gave me a brain because I did some pretty crazy stuff, you know? And it made me, I didn't realize I was the man behind the curtain the whole time, the scared little guy pulling the strings, trying to get everybody away. I'm the great Oz. And that comes later in life. But I didn't realize that's the kind of life I was living. So that happened, and I started at a young age, and I was considered a freak back then, and so that kind of moved me away from any kind of religion or God that I had. What happened was is that some of my friends were getting First Communion. I made catechism, and they took different names, and I didn't do that, and I felt different. And then all of a sudden, since I started playing, with fire, literally. I decided that I was going to play on the other team, and there was no God in my life moving forward from that day on. I was the one who was making decisions. I was the one that was doing it my way. I was the one that was going to get it done. There was no reliance on anything else. And so it worked out great for, at first because there wasn't many consequences. And living in upper New Jersey, we were right by New York State, and there was a town called Suffern. I love the name of that town because I'm suffering and suffering. And the bars are open to 4 a.m. And my high school had a bar. You had to be 18 at the time to drink. And I had a bar tab at 16. Okay. I was drinking. I was an everyday drinker at like 15, 16. I got into a rock band and I loved it. I loved The Who. I loved Jimi Hendrix. I loved The Doors. We played a lot of Doors songs. And so all my idols, which I come to find out later, which I really admired and adored, are all dead drug addict alcoholics. So go figure, that's the path I'm on. I want to emulate these people and I almost did, it came close several times. Um, so, the thing was is that alcohol became so much of an everyday thing. And like I said, that doesn't make me an alcoholic, but I needed it every day. Every day we would meet somewhere, we'd drink, and drinking just seemed normal. There was no such thing as called drinking and driving. It was just called driving. We didn't go anywhere without alcohol. And I didn't realize alcohol was making decisions for me at the time. I just thought this was a normal behavior. I remember shutting the bar down, and they wouldn't serve after 4, but you can order beers after, and then they would shut the door and then open up and then start serving at 6. There was only a 2-hour window. And you didn't have to go anywhere. And see, I didn't realize I had the allergy. I didn't realize that's why I could drink so much. I didn't realize that alcohol gave me energy. And once I put alcohol in me, I wanted more. That was my favorite drink. More of everything. I would say one more, one more. All the, not I'm done, I'm gonna go. No, one more. And then cows would come home, they'd go back out again, and they'd come home. I'd be like, one more. Yeah, and that's how I started out. And like I said, the first half of that, it was fun. I mean, obviously we drank because we love the effect produced by alcohol. I love that effect that it produces in me. But I can't understand the consequences. I don't realize my alcoholism kicks up when I put the drink down. And that was something that was, taught to me in Alcoholics Anonymous, that when I take the drink and I put it down, my alcoholism demands to be treated. And I'm going to treat it with the solution to my problem, which is alcohol, which is a destroyer. I'm going to treat it with the solution of the problem, which is Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a restorer. And I have that ability today to because of that power to choose the other one. Because without this power, I am powerless. And that's in step one. And I love step one because step one's promises tells me that I will drink again no matter how much time I have. I got to be a fool to think that, oh, I got 14 years or 30 years, I'm not going to drink. No, step one tells me I'm powerless. So, and my life's unmanageable. And that's the beauty of that. I just have that daily reprieve contingent. I love that word contingent. And so those things that I told you about with my sponsor and being sponsorable and working with people and giving away and believing in that power greater than myself and being divinely inconvenienced are contingent. Those are the contingencies that I do. Like, I'm so glad Eric asked me to speak today. I said yes, because that's what I was taught to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. Say yes, because somebody might need to hear what I have to say. And if not, it's okay too. I want to welcome anybody that's new. I want to welcome the new people to the meeting. I think that was important to me when I got into Alcoholics Anonymous. People said welcome instead of get out of here. Get out, get out. And that was at the final end. But let me just get back to some of the fun stuff when it was still working before I found that, that power. See, because alcohol and drugs were a power greater than myself. And in the big book, it talks about self-will run riot. It talks about that, I am self-centered, selfish. It says I'm the problem, you know. I self me is the other ism that I suffer from, It's all about me. I'm incredibly selfish me, another ism. I love these words for ism. I'm incredibly selfish. And I don't realize that at the time. I can't not tell the true from the false. And so what happens is that I need relief from me and I can't get it anywhere else but the bottle, the only thing I know. So when it's working for me, things are going good. I end up getting an opportunity to move to California, and I'll never forget this. I move out there. The drinking age was 21. The bars closed at 2 a.m., which meant like 1:30 was last call. And they're like, last call. I'm like, last call? What? This is what I'm getting going. Like, this is what, I'm not ready to stop because I didn't realize I had that allergy, that I can't stop. And I never understood that why I was the last guy up at the party, why I wanted to go, go, go. I wanted more. Now I understand why. But self-knowledge isn't going to save me. And that's been proven in our book, in our literature over and over again. We smash into us that self-knowledge is not going to do it. Roland Hazard had the self-knowledge, right? It didn't matter. He was drunk in no time. Fred the accountant had the self-knowledge. Thank you, fellas. It doesn't matter, It doesn't matter what I know. It's what I do. And that's what this program is a program of action. And so I as these things are happening, the first thing I did then is I need booze. So I got a keg and I put the keg in my refrigerator. I actually didn't want food in it. I cut a hole in my refrigerator that I was paying for in California, made a keg refrigerator because that was more important to me. That's what I'm telling you. Alcohol was my higher power. I loved it. I lived it. I thought about it. I needed it. And I didn't realize that a little at a time it was taking pieces of me. I was a caddy before if I reflect back to it before I moved out, and I was up late one night and I needed the hair of the dog, and I was taking a pull out of the tap, and the guy's like, "Hey, hey, what are you doing?" And I ran out of there. I never went back to that job. It was already making me give things away. And see, I don't lose things because of my alcoholism. I give them away. I want to make that clear. It's like, oh, I lost my job, I lost my house, I lost my car. No, somebody's driving my car, somebody's living in my house, somebody has my job. I just gave them away because King alcohol is like a pimp. It wants to pimp me out, makes take me out when I don't want to go out. It does things that I don't want to do. And I say, no, I don't want to go out, and I'm out anyway. But I can't see this at the time. I'm just thinking, I like going out you know? And so when it's working, it's fun, and all these games start happening. And then, and this is the 80s. I get introduced to this other substance. I heard Bill C talk at the state line. He was talking about, you know, because they talk about drugs in our literature. It's like, he goes, an alcoholic with money and alcohol equals one thing. And he said cocaine. And he goes, listen, I did cocaine to drink. He goes, I didn't do cocaine just to do cocaine. They got another program for that, And I'm like, I understand. So I found this thing that made me drink more, and I loved it. But that's when it fast tracked me. I started drinking, and then once I did that other stuff, 3 years later, I got introduced into a 30-day rehab program. And this is back in the day when rehabs weren't as cool as they are today. It was like, he's in rehab. Oh my God, he's a defective. He's not right, and people at work, it was a secretive. You couldn't talk about it. And I went in this place to save my job. And this is the best part about this. I'm desperate. I'm going to get fired. I'm not showing up. This stuff's consuming my life now. From having fun, now it's taking control of me. And so I said, look, I need help, which is something that was against my ability. Like I said, you don't ask for help. That's a sign of weakness. And so I asked for help at my work because I didn't want to lose this great job that I had. And I went in there. I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. They gave me a big book. It was a third edition at the time, which they put their names in there. Didn't read it. Didn't get a sponsor. Didn't do any of the work. Went to a couple of meetings, started parroting stuff you said, like I'm hip, slick, and cool. Like, yeah, man, don't drink no matter what. Hey, man, meeting makers make, stuff like that, that you heard back in those days. Put the plug in the jug, like, please keep coming back. Like, anyway, that was the AA back then at some points. And it was like horrible compared to what I see today. But see, the horrible thing was there were still people sober, but I was unwilling to do certain things. I was unwilling to get a sponsor at the time. I didn't think I was bad enough. And so all of a sudden I start doing really good at work. I start going to some meetings, but I just go to meetings. I get body. And my friend's getting married, and this is in May. I went in December, so it's what, 5 months? And they had a keg there. And, I'm like thinking, wow, wow, okay. They have a keg.
Tom, you there, buddy? We lost you. We'll just hang in there. He's going to come back. This is not a long, Derek, dramatic pause.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Am I out?
you
Am
are.
I
You're
good?
back. You're back, brother. You're back.
I'm sorry. It must be this hotel Wi-Fi. God is like, okay. So anyway, where did I leave off? It doesn't matter. Oh, shit.
They had
Am
a
I
keg.
They had a keg.
Okay, so we had a keg, and what happened was is that, of course, I'm sitting there, and I don't realize that if I don't have a sufficient solution for my alcoholism, the spring inside of me is just tightening up and tightening up and tightening up, and all of a sudden, a drink looks like medicine to me. All of a sudden, I see the keg, I see people having fun, I forget the fact that I'm an alcoholic. And on page 24, it talks about the fact that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost their power of choice. The so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force. That's the key, the sufficient force, the memory and the suffering and humiliation of a week or a month ago were without defense against the first drink. And see, I went into this rehab because I'm going to lose my job. I'm done. I'm going to be fired. But I don't remember that. I think, wow, this looks good. And this is now, this goes on for like years after this, trying to stop and forgetting. And I take the drink sober all the time. And that means that there's something wrong with my sobriety. Because if drinking was my problem, I would put the drink down and I wouldn't have any problems, but I do. So it can't be the drink, right? So I take the drink and I start doing well at work and they start giving me awards and stuff, which you don't want to do for an alcoholic. And I start resting on my laurels. And next thing you know, hold on. Where'd you go? Shit. Damn it, this computer. Sorry. Next thing you know, I start resting on my laurels, and there you are. Uh, And I just put the sale up, and about a year goes by. I win sales guy of the year. Year and a half goes by, my sales are going down because I'm drinking and using again. And then a year and a half later, they fire me. And once again, I'm giving it away because this is more powerful than me. And so this is going to start a whole like part of my life of like not relying on any other higher power but drugs and alcohol and myself. You know, I serve myself as another ism, right? I'm serving myself. You know, I don't realize I have an insidious spiritual malady at the time of I, self, and me. That's all I'm doing. I'm thinking about me and how I could get away with things and how I'm going to do this. And so what happens is I get introduced. I'm not going to go really long into this whole deal, but I got introduced into Alcoholics Anonymous once for work, once for the police, right? I went for the police, and then I went for my wife. And this is what happened once again. So as the progressiveness is getting worse, and I have kids, I get married, you know, and a beautiful house, great jobs, but my alcoholism is now in full force. And I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, why can't I stay stopped? I can't figure it out. I'm always trying to figure it out. You know, the illusion, the wrongly perceived or interpreted by the senses. You know, it's this illusion that I have some kind of control over it. Because when I get time, I believe that I have some kind of control, that I could stop for a little bit. So I must be able to control this. Little do I know, I have no control over it. It controls me. And so I'm sitting there, and my wife said to me, and it's like almost like in Bill's story, Bill's brother-in-law took Bill down to town's hospital, and the brother-in-law said, "Hey, Tom, you know, we're going to take you down this place." And we went to this detox slash psych ward at the time. And I was like, whoa, okay. It's Father's Day. They go, Tom, this is why you should go. So I went in there, I detoxed for 5 days. And they were bringing people in that wanted to kill themselves. And I just separated myself more. They're like, wow, this guy's crazy. This guy's crazy. I'm like, I'm going to rise from the ashes like the phoenix. And I'm in crafts class and I'm doing this stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to be great. They put me on more pills than CVS. They had me on Seroquel. They had me on ADD medicine. They had me on Champel. They had me on Linestra. I mean, what they were doing is they were treating my spiritual malady with chemicals. And I've been doing that my whole life. I didn't realize that that was the issue, that I have an insatiable spiritual malady, the ism, right? It's inside of me. I'm restless, irritable, and discontented all the time. And this is the problem. I get out. My ex-wife says, "What did they tell you to do?" I said, "They didn't bring AA in because I went in there Sunday through Friday and they brought a panel in on Saturday." So they didn't say anything. And I was a zombie for a week and we went to this beach club. And next thing you know, I have a beer in my hand. And she said, "What's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with?" I'm like, in the book. So if you read the big book, you know, there's no stick figures or diagrams or pictures, but there are mirrors in there, man. And you can see yourself in the book. You spot it, you got it. And that's one of the things that when I read that in the book, I was like, wow, okay, what's wrong with you? And the most honest thing I could come up with was, I don't know. And that was the place. I didn't know. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know I suffered from alcoholism, that was my problem, the spiritual malady. And it just manifests into so many different things. It manifests into depression. I think I'm depressed. I think it's this. I think I'm this. It's my relationships. It's this. It's my job. It's my boss. No, it's just a manifestation of my spiritual malady or my alcoholism. And I don't understand why. I'm always blaming you and everybody else for my problems. I'm carrying around this bag of crap that I've collected for my whole entire life that I'm using to justify my drinking. Oh, if you only had my life, if you only did this, if you only lived this way, oh, if this happened to me, just a giant blame thrower and speaking victimese. And that's if you ever spoke that before, welcome to the Alcoholics Anonymous, man. I'm so glad that you're here. And I remember, I love on Bill's story on page 8 where it says, no words can tell of the loneliness and despair found in the morass of self-pity, quicksand stretched all around me in all directions. I had met my match. I'd been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. And that's what I was. It was my master. And so what my wife do? She took the kids, she ran out, she kicked me out. And that was the best thing she could have ever done. And it made me homeless. Right. I didn't see it at the time. It took me 2 years into my sobriety. So my sponsor asked me some serious questions like, where did your mail go to, Tom? And my ex-wife's house. Did you live there? No. When you stay at your dad's in Florida, do you pay rent there? No. Well, when you stay in Redondo Beach, do you help the? No, I don't pay any rent there. He goes, you know what that means? I'm like, no. And that's homeless. And I was like, alcoholism made me homeless. And see, that's the word delusion. See, I love that Bill used illusion and delusion. Delusion is falsely believed by misleading of the mind. See, I thought I was living places, and so I'm not homeless. I was living in a house. I did sleep in my car once, but I wasn't living in the park, you know, contradicted by reality or rational agreements. I can't see the truth. I love it. He talks about we cannot tell the truth from the false. And so that set me off. And that word I love, our big book, they talk about pitiful and comprehensible demoralization, and I at this point I'm starting to wondering what's going on. I start trying to seek some power. I start reading some books, but that's not sufficient enough. You know, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. My dad came to town on my birthday and I went out on my birthday and my wife at the time invited me into our house that I used to live in and I had a resentment like no tomorrow. And resentment's the number one offender. And I was burned up and I went out drinking with authority. And I got so drunk that I fell in the street and and as I fell in the street, my kids were there and my dad was in town and they had to identify me and the police came. They had to carry me up to the room. And my dad, this is his son on vacation on his birthday, is laying in the gutter. Now, if that's not pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, I don't know what is. So that's that whole time, of what happens. I get down, I play the victim. He leaves. I say, I'm going to stop. I go to my first AA meeting on my own. Like, I got to stop. And this is the problem with alcoholics or alcoholism. I say I'm going to stop when it gets bad enough. But the problem is it's already way too bad before I could see the problem because I can't tell the truth from the false. And so I go to my first AA meeting. I picked up some literature. Somebody gave me some numbers. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run across this bridge. And I did some exercise and I was reading some spiritual books. And what happened a week later, I'm running across the bridge. And and as I run in this 5K, it's Conquer the Bridge on Labor Day, somebody hands me a beer. And once again, I take the beer and I'm off to the races. And on page 43, they talk about more about alcoholism. One more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. His defense must come from solution, the higher power. And see, that's the deal. I thought I was going to exercise and read spiritual books. These are defenses, but they're mental defenses, but they're not effective. I had plenty of defenses to try to overcome my alcoholism, but they weren't effective because I had no connection to that higher power. And little did I know that my higher power is working with me the whole time, like shaking his head, like, "Are you done yet, son? Have you been done yet?" And so I go on to the races one more time. Now I can't even catch a sober breath. Now I'm wishing for the end, that bitter morass of loneliness, like the boy whistling in the dark. I'll be at the jumping off point. And so what happens is that, you know, I get beat up on Thanksgiving. Way to celebrate Thanksgiving. I end up in a hospital, beat up bad. God's like, "Did I get your attention yet?" I'm like, "No," because now I'm really pissed and I got some resentments. So then what do I do is the girl that I was dating, here's about my story because I was house sitting her dogs because she was in New York. And and she breaks up with me. And God's like, "Did I get your attention?" I'm like, "Nope, you didn't get my attention." Now I'm really pissed off when I'm drinking with authority. So the last day on December 22nd, I go to the Elks Lodge, which I'm a member at, and I'll never forget the night before. There was some weird shift that was going on, and I go up there, and everybody's eyes looked really weird, and I just didn't know what was about to happen. And I didn't care. I'm driving my friend's car that he gave me. He was kind enough to lend me a car. Now, to let you know, I was on a to and from work driver's license, but I didn't have work. I wasn't working at the time. I didn't have a job at the time. I didn't have everything. God was removing everything from me. He was stripping me of everything and everything and everything. And I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on to the alcohol. It's the only thing I know. It's working, but it's not working. I mean, I wish I could get the same relief. And I'm drinking around the clock. And so I go to this Elks Lodge and I go up there and I do a couple shots and I'm like, should I go out or should I go home? I think you guys know the answer. I'm not going home. I'm going out. So as I'm going out, I'm driving down this hill and I'm blowing through stop signs because I don't care right now. I'm wishing for the end. And this Tundra hits this BMW M convertible 5 and it hits the car and it smashes into me and it spins the car and it parks the car perfectly. Right. I get out, there's a kid in the car, there's like another guy, like he's drunk. I start, whatever. I give him my ID, I give him the thing, insurance. I run. I go to this other guy's house. It's Christmas time. I basically kick in the door. I'm just a menace now. Nobody wants anything to do with me. From that fun guy, party guy living in Hermosa Beach, living on the Strand, doing this. Now my life has been reduced to just nothing. And I'm just living that way. And I'm miserable. And it's terrible. And I can't stop. I don't know what to do. And so I go back and I go to his house. I take a taxi to the bar where I got beat up, and the owner looks at him and he's like, "Oh man, you're crazy, man." He goes, "Look, I'll give you one drink, but you got to go," because he knew he couldn't say no to me because I would have caused crap. So he gives me one drink, and I go to the other bar next door, and they look at me. They're like, you ain't coming in here." So me being an Einstein. Now remember, I just crashed my buddy's car. I was beat up on Thanksgiving. I sneak in the back door and now I'm dancing on the dance floor because that's what most normal people do. I'm completely insane. I am insane out of my mind. The bouncer looks at me and he's like, "What the heck?" And he grabs me and he's gonna throw me in the alley. He's gonna pummel me again. And I swear, like, I am like, my life has just been reduced to nothing and I'm like still holding on. And this is what I love. You could either let go or let God, or you can hold on and get dragged, my friends. And I'm holding on. I'm just getting dragged along the way. And he's like, "Let go, let go." And I'm like, "No, no." And so the guy, he knew me. He didn't pummel me, but he's like, "Get out of here." And I go to this hotel room, which I've checked in before, loaded for cash. And I call the place up and I'm character assassinating him, which is murder in the spiritual world, by the way. You're a murderer, and I'm murdering people, and I'm doing all this stuff. And I come to that morning, and I'll never forget it. I come to, which I've come to many times, but this time something was different. I'm like, "Oh God, please help me. Like, please help me, like, with all of my heart, with everything in me, because I was living in a house going to get kicked out of. I just smashed my buddy's car that gave it to me. I'm unemployed. I don't have a driver's license. The kids are gone. Everything's been removed. I have to tear everything down, and whatever's standing up, I got to burn down before I can go to God because I'm playing God. And it says in our big book, we quit playing God. Why? It doesn't work. it doesn't work. But no, I'm going to try to arrange and play. No. So I asked for help, which is going against what I told you. I didn't do it my way, right? I asked for help. And so amazingly, this is where the miracle happened. What I would normally do when I cause problems is to solve that problem, I would drink the problem away, which would cause more problems. And I would drink, which would cause problems because I caused problems the night before. And it was this downward spiral. For some reason, that day, I did not take the drink. God showed up. That window of opportunity was there. He was there the whole time. He was there saying, "Are you done yet?" And I finally said, "I am done. I got the message." And he was there. He revealed himself to me. Now, that was just the start, because in the book, it talks about phenomena, like spiritual arrangements of happening since the beginning of time, and I've been trying to produce that in you, Roland, but they do, but they don't last because there's a blockage that I have in me. There's something blocking me from that spirit. It's all that calamity, the resentments, the stories I'm telling, my guilt and toxic shame and everything I'm carrying. I'm wearing it like a billboard, and I'm telling these delusional stories about who I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing, which are not true. If you do a four-step, you will see. You will see the truth. That's the beauty of this program. And so I start going on my way, and the funny thing is that God starts showing up miraculously, right? I detox for 5 days. I can't move, right? I can't go to a meeting at the time, but I'm gonna do it on my own again because I'm so smart. And all of a sudden, this voice came into my head and said, "Hey, Tom, you know, you tried to do it on your own before, and you only got so far. Why don't you give Alcoholics Anonymous a try?" And I was like, "What?" And then the the note thing that somebody gave me at the meeting, this folder that they gave me, popped up, and there was meetings on there, and I'm like, whoa, okay. And I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now that's a power greater than myself. I started hearing your stories. I started to relate to the stories. I started saying, wow, me too. See, because when I used to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, I would look for the differences. Like, I didn't live behind a dumpster yet. I didn't get unemployed yet. I didn't do that yet. I didn't wet my bed yet, right? Please, all these different things. It was always that yet. You're eligible too, and I would look for the differences. And I wasn't looking for the similarities. And the music might have been playing, but I couldn't hear the music. And so all of a sudden, God's like, "Hey," and I need to get a sponsor. And people are like, "Hey, do you got a sponsor?" And I love this story. My sponsor, he loves talking about this story too, is that I've been going to the Saturday night meeting, and the reason why I was going there because I had nothing else to do, and there were some pretty girls there. Okay, I have to admit. Okay, I was a guy, I was single, I had nothing going on in my life, so there was girls there, and I've been going to this meeting for a while, and it's a Saturday night. And he goes, "Hey, come over here." He goes, "Come over here," and he goes, "I want you to do this." He opens up an envelope and he gives me this assignment, and it's a sex inventory. He's like, "Listen, I want you to write down what happened, what you did, what harm, what you could have done different. I've looked at all these different lines that we go through." And he goes, "I want you to do 7 of them." And I'm thinking, what? Okay. Now I tell my friend, I go, "Wow, this guy, Pat, just gave me this thing. It's an inventory." He goes, "Well, that's a fourth-step inventory." I go, "Well, maybe he thinks I'm on my fourth step." He goes, "No, that's not Pat. Pat doesn't buy the book." He's like, "There's no way." And see, everyone said you should get Pat. But I'm like, no, no, I'm good. Pat was a hard spot. I want to do it the softer, easier way, right? And so I'm like, nah. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, maybe Pat's the keeper of the women in the meeting and he wants to get my freak and he's going to hook me up. That's my character defect right there. I'm thinking, yes, that's what it is. So I take the assignment and I go home and I do the assignment and I write the assignment down and it says call in the week. And as he went to dinner that night, the guy for the assignment shows up and he's like, "Hey, you got my assignment?" The guy's like, "Oh man, no." And he called his sponsor and his sponsor said, "Let's see what happens." It said call in a week. For some reason, I was willing to take directions and I called him. And he goes, "Hey, Pat, how's it going?" "Yeah, it's Tom." I go, "Gee," he goes, "Did you do that assignment?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "How was it?" I go, "It wasn't pretty." He's like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "You want to start from the beginning?" And I'm like, Amen. God answered my prayer. I got a sponsor, been my sponsor for the last 12 years. 12 and a half years. And like God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And God's been showing up in my life so many different times that I can't see until I could look back and connect the dots, which is the name of my home group I belong to. If any of you guys ever come to Las Vegas, my number is in the chat. Come visit us. We'll take you to that meeting. Monday night's a great speaker meeting. Tuesday night's a book study. Uh, Friday night's a step study. Sunday's another, it's the same deal. It's unbelievable. A great AA in Vegas because of the fact there's so much sickness here. And I ended up in a beautiful spot. So anyway, what happens is that, I look at Alcoholics Anonymous, I start doing the work, I don't do this perfectly, trust me. That's one thing that's great about this. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. And I made some mistakes in sobriety. I remember I switched from bottles to legs that became bottles, and women became a problem for me. And I started dating a couple women at the same time, and my sponsor found out about it because I wasn't being honest. And this whole program was about honesty. And he's like, Tom, what are you doing? You're going to cause some harm here. And so I didn't realize that my alcoholism can manifest into something else. And I'm working with some guys out here, their alcoholism manifests into gambling. Their alcoholism manifests into working out. Their alcohol, so we got to be careful because my spiritual malady is going to just find something else and grab onto. It's just not alcohol. Alcohol is just a symptom. I could have other symptoms that could then haunt me, and I could cause some serious harm to people, gambling, womenizing, any of that stuff. And it was terrible. But anyway, so it goes from, doing getting some secretary meetings, start showing up at meetings. I started going to this home group, and this guy, Steve L. I had my kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he was a Marine special force guy. He's a lawyer. He's sitting there at this table. Surrender. I don't surrender for anything. We don't surrender. And you're telling me to surrender. And that was my first meeting at this home group. And that home group had such a massive impression on me. I called my ex-wife at the time and said, we need to switch our kids. And that's been my home group. 5 minutes? It's been That's been my home group for the last 12 years. And they have a Zoom meeting too that I can attend around there. I speak when I go back there, which is great. And I love being connected to Alcoholics Anonymous. But that changed the course because I was going to some Alano Club meetings, which serve a purpose. And now I go fishing at these meetings and say, hey, come with me. I want to show you something. Let's really talk about a good cup of coffee here. If you're as sick as me, you're going to need a strong cup of coffee. And I think you are. What do you think about this? And so I love that Alcoholics Anonymous is everywhere. I get to travel all over the place. I get to move to Las Vegas, right? I wasn't planning on living in Vegas. And God's like, you know what? You're going to live in Las Vegas. On my fear inventory, when I did my steps, it was like I wasn't going to be able to afford a house in Los Angeles, of course. My ex-wife has my house. It's worth over $1 million. I wasn't going to how am I going to do this? I just started from ground zero. God's like, well, guess what? You're moving to Las Vegas. So my sobriety is 2010. By 2017, I'm a homeowner in Las Vegas. How is that possible? Power greater than myself and Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how it's possible. How is it possible that I get hooked up with this home group called Connect the Dots, and they have service commitments everywhere, and that now I go to panels at least once a week. I do a jail commitment. I do a prison commitment on a Friday night. Who knew I'd be excited to go to Friday night to go to a prison and talk to guys? And it's some of the best God dope out there, man. It's unbelievable being of service to people. Doing this, being divinely inconvenienced is awesome. I love this. This is my primary purpose is to help another alcoholic. This is what I know that I need to do in order to live the what I have today. I got to give it away to get it. I don't keep it. I got to keep on giving it away. And God's with me the whole time. I ask God every morning, God, how can I help you today? How can I help you, Mr. G? What can I do for you? How can I help your children? Please get me out of me. The third step prayer, relieve me of the bondage to self. See, because King Alcohol used to do that for me. And I need a substitute. I need a substitute for that. I cannot do this on my own. I need you. I need the steps. I need God. I need that power every day because I might be powerless, but I'm not helpless. I'm not helpless. I need help. something I couldn't ask for as a kid because I was taught it was weak. But I need help. And with your help, God's help, and this help of working with others, it's a miracle. The life I have today is something that I could never have imagined. It's beautiful. I just got back from Hawaii. I took my kids to Hawaii. I went to a meeting in Hawaii every morning and I cried saying, "Thank you, God." I mean, I was home, I was dying, I was going to be dead. I should be dead. I'm on borrowed time. But Alcoholics Anonymous gives us the ability, gave me the ability to have two lives in one. And the shitty life when I have new guys like, I want my old life back. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't want that life back. And that's because you don't know another life. And then you get involved with this life. And it's like, I wake up in the morning instead of going like, oh, I'm so up, sorry, got this. I wake up going, God, thank you. Serenity, emotional sobriety. And that's the result of working the steps. And that's one thing I love about this. We have a design for living that's so unbelievable. It's something that I wish I would have found out sooner, but you find out when you want to find out. And one of the isms that I found out, the best ism is I surrender myself. I surrender myself to him, to this program, to a guy that I understand and I have a relationship with that God, a guy I could do, the God that I can do business with, not that church God that I was playing for the other team, that I was going to be a punishing God. Somewhere I could wake up and ask him what I could do for him today. And what he did for me today is he asked me to come to this meeting and speak to you guys, even though I'm at a convention sitting in right at a hotel in Las Vegas, not drinking, not gambling, not doing any of those things that I used to do, not getting a lady of the night, not doing drugs, none of that stuff. How is that possible? There's only one way that's possible. It's through God, that change, that power greater than myself, that inner change that happened. Instead of taking stuff from the outside, the change comes from the inside. My outsides look beautiful. It's like the Wizard of Oz in color. It's unbelievable. And if you're new, I hope you could have this experience. We lay the tools at your feet. I don't give them to you. I wish I could give them to you. You have to pick them up. It's a program of spiritual action. And for that, I am grateful. Thank you for letting me share.
Brother Tom, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Let me kill this recording.